The NBA season is a few months away, but there are still tons of sports for you to get in the game and make your next bet with Sports Interaction. Bet before the game or live and play on all of your favorite teams' matchups. Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN or download the app to get started. 19 plus, please play responsibly. Welcome to SDPN's off-season mini-series, The Leap, where I sit down with media members from across the NBA to discuss some of the up-and-coming players in the league that could take that next step in their careers. We discuss 6 players across 6 different teams, all with different styles and positions, in hopes of understanding what makes their development unique. Today, we're taking a look at Mavericks wing Josh Green. The Aussie is entering his 4th year in the league after making sizable improvements as a shooter and defender over the last 2 seasons. Now it's about growth. It's about scaling up the things he did well, especially last season, so that he can fit ideally next to Dallas's superstars in Luka, Doncic, and Kyrie Irving. Green is near the forefront of a new evolution of 3-and-D player, and it'll be important to track his development and really see if he's ready to take the next leap. All right, welcome back to another episode of The Leap, my off-season series dissecting and discussing some players that I think are ready to take that next step in their careers. We're joined by Grant Afseth, who is covering the Dallas Mavericks and the NBA at large for Sports Illustrated, and for another publication as well, if I'm not mistaken. But I believe you are mostly a Dallas Mavericks aficionado, and I have you on here to talk about a guy who I'm really high on. I think is an exciting player to look forward to for the Dallas Mavericks, and that is Josh Green. He's entering year 4 now, entering a contract, a year that's going to be important for him contract-wise. What have you seen from him progression-wise over the last 3 seasons, and sort of what is your expectation heading into next season for Josh Green?
Yeah, I think there's been a big contrast from, looking at even during the Mavericks 2022 Western Conference Finals run, whether it was against Utah with Rudy Gobert anchoring the paint and basically, guarding Josh Green without guarding him, leaving him open, disrespecting him as a shooter to protect the paint. He wasn't confident taking the open shot, knocking it down, and they had to go away from him, throughout their run. And he came back the next season, like this previous season, and he was a much more efficient and confident shooter on the open catch and shoot looks. He's always been that intriguing kind of like secondary playmaker, if you will, like the initial drive, draws a help, and then pass out, the player catches it, and then a redrives. He's really good at the redrives and kind of leaving his feet and making a in the air pass. Right. So, seeing the shooting come together so he can kind of, fully piece together his impact, that was, definitely a positive last year. And, he was one of the best athletes on a Mavs team that didn't really have many athletes as well. Like he was able to do some acrobatic finishes against those closeouts and, things of that nature. So I think overall he progressed a lot last season. It was a little, rocky with him after the Kyrie Irving trade. I think he had some struggles kind of finding his role as like, a cohesive fit with 2 superstars as opposed to 1. Right. So that will be the question going forward.
So you mentioned a couple things there, and I'll jump on the shooting first, which is a huge development for his career. It was going to be such an important part of him being able to make it in the NBA and sustain a role in the NBA, and he has, at least so far, he's done that. He shot 40% on 3 attempts. About 3 attempts last year. His points per game total didn't jump. Nothing like that really popped out to you in year 3, but from a catch and shoot perspective, he shot 41% on catch and shoots last year. It was, I believe, 36% in year 2. His pull-up, he doesn't pull up at all yet. I mean, there hasn't really been that much evidence of him developing a pull-up game, but the shooting is coming. And you mentioned the playmaking aspect. I think the fact that he's such an active participant on offense, where he can attack a closeout, be able to make a play, and also be able to knock down an open shot, it makes it so important for him to become that 3 and D role player, at least initially with Luka and Kyrie. And I wonder how you think that might fit next season, how that role might look next year, especially with the new additions, right? You have Grant Williams coming into the fold, Seth Curry, a guy who can maybe space the floor for you a little bit more as well. How do you think Josh Green's role looks with Luka, with Kyrie, with the new additions?
Yeah, I think in general, he'll still be very much a floor spacer, but I think with a full training camp to actually get like the whole offense installed,
Mm-hmm.
and to build chemistry with Luka and Kyrie and the unit as a whole, I think there will be more utilization of different actions. There was times where he was a screener for Luka and vice versa. Luka, was basically the decoy
So
in a
I've got a number, I've got a stat there for you. 1.18 as a pick and roll man. And that was something that really surprised me when I looked it up, because I was like, "Oh man, there's a lot left on the table in terms of untapped potential as a guy who can kind of dive to the basket for you." I wonder if we see that a little bit more with Luka and Kyrie next season.
Yeah, I definitely think I think he could be a pretty dynamic player in those situations. 'Cause, he's got that ability to make the passing reads. He's an athletic finisher. Like if you don't make the rotation on like a short roll to him,
Mhm.
he's going to get to the rim pretty quickly. I think they'll have to figure out the lineup combinations. I think that would mostly be a thing with Maxi Kleba spaced out, as opposed to like a dunker spot big like Derek Lively or Dwight Powell. But
Right.
I think that overall that could be an intriguing, way he can make an impact. But I do think, will probably utilize him in general as, like a couple screens. I could see, during a game like where he's setting a ball screen, or they use Kyrie as a decoy. He was utilized as a screener quite a bit, not as like Luka was not as much, but I think he could be utilized at times as well. I think they probably won't change too much of their style overall, but I think just adding a little bit of layers, like they'll probably run more like stack pick and roll, double drags, and things of that nature, not like too complicated of stuff. But I think for Josh Green in particular, it was very intriguing for him when he was the ball handler, and he was able to attack really aggressively with his athleticism, just straight hard right, because they're not going to leave Luka, they're not going to leave Kyrie. So within the flow of an offense as well, in other situations where he's starting off ball, I think it'll be intriguing to see how they utilize Luka and Kyrie more as off ball screeners. Kyrie was pretty active in that instance and it forced switches and things of that nature. But I think it'd be interesting to see going forward how much Josh Green maybe grows comfortable in those areas that you said about like the pull up shooting. Like
Mhm.
how assertive could he be, attacking a mismatch of his own as they utilize him more in those like sort of screening actions, whether he's a screener or he's the ball handler. I think that those are probably big questions, heading into this upcoming season, because I do think he's got some juice in that regard. Like he when he has his big games, if you look at like if you watch the highlights even of like when he scored like 29 against Utah, or just some of those bigger 20 plus point games that he's had, he's taken some short range pull ups. Like he's
Yeah.
confident getting to a spot, raising up and shooting. So I think how confident he's a very confident or confidence oriented player. I feel like if he's got the feel, and he's comfortable in his role, I think he excels. So having this whole training camp with the roster they intend to have. For the most part, I think it'll be interesting to see how that impacts him and how comfortable he is kind of growing into his game like he did last year. Because even open shots, knocking those down was a big difference. But
Yeah.
now, where can he take it to the next level is definitely something to watch for sure.
So this is the thing that kind of jumps out to me. And I mentioned that he was a great 3 point shooter last year, but on low volume, 3 attempts a game. And he shot 45% on non-corner threes, which is just astounding. Like that's just incredible volume, and like wow, that's
Yeah,
unreal.
he had some pick and pop sequences where he was
Yeah.
really confident, like especially against the Nets. I think early in the season, he had a couple, like they were running almost a little bit through him on quite a few plays. I think he knocked down like a three. He attacked the rim. So
Yeah.
like Yeah, he's definitely capable of that, like
Do you
above the break
believe?
shooting.
So I know that it's low volume, but do you believe that can get scaled up to a higher volume where he's taking 6 or 7 a night? Do you think that's possible? And obviously with Luka and Kyrie, they're drawing attention. It's going to be open for him more often, right? Do you think he'll be able to knock down at the same clip what he's been shooting at last season?
I think overall his he'd probably shoot a little bit. I guess you could say probably like I feel like he's one of those guys where if he takes a higher volume, where he's taking more of those contested looks,
Yeah.
and is like fully embracing that, I feel like he would probably dip a little bit. He might shoot like high 30s. I feel like as his peak for as he grows into a shooter, taking those types of shots.
Right.
But I remember like throughout last season, it was actually kind of interesting. Like different points, like up until like I think around the trade deadline, I kind of kept asking him periodically about like how does he feel the defense is kind of game planning for him, like attacking it or closing out on him. Like does he feel that his improvement has resulted in tighter closeouts that have opened him up to be able to attack downhill? And
Right.
he was very honest, like quite a few times. I knew he was gonna say like on a couple of times where it's like not yet. Like I wanted to have a progression to track it. So
Yeah.
at the beginning of the season, I knew he was gonna say not yet, and then he kind of felt more as the season went along a little bit more. But I think this upcoming year, knowing that he's gonna probably get more respect with the full season of the shooting
Right.
being higher than it was the previous year, a little more volume, as you said. I think he'll probably, those PDF files on the scouting report will be a
Oh
little more
yeah.
updated.
Yeah.
Yeah, and seeing how he handles that, I think will definitely be a big, thing. And I think he can handle, letting it fly a little more. I think with overall two superstars, I think it's very apparent that you need to let it fly, or you kind of get lost in the mix if you're hesitating on the catch. And they need someone in there that's going to really be aggressive, letting it go on the catch for sure.
So I wonder, and you mentioned like you want him to sort of explore the other areas of his game, whether it be as a role man, creating for himself, maybe creating for others. I wonder if the second unit is a way to tap into that. And I imagine Luka and Kyrie get staggered a considerable amount. Maybe, they'll start games, they'll close games, but I think in between there are going to be a lot of times where those two get staggered and you see different variations, different lineups just to see what's good out there. I think that's where Josh Green can sort of tap into a little bit more of the playmaking side of things, a little bit more of the on-ball creation, see what else is out there for him. Because I agree with you, he's an incredible athlete. He can create separation for himself from that point of view. And being able to tap into that is what's next for his evolution as a player. Do you think that's possible? Do you think them staggering lineups and maybe tapping into giving him more on-ball opportunities that way is the way they go next season?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think it's hard to imagine them deviating too much from the core of the two superstars, the way they structured their minutes. Luka would play the full first most of the time. He started to come out a little bit, I think, for third quarters
Mm-hmm.
to be able to play a little bit earlier in the fourth quarter. And Kyrie would kind of run the show for the whole, like, for most of the second quarter until it was like, I guess you could say money time, if you will, like the
Right.
last
Yeah.
like 2 minutes. Yeah. So I think with Kyrie, or there's a little more options for him to kind of expand because or for Josh Green, because I feel like they had more of a connection, like
Okay.
kind of utilizing Kyrie as that screener, things of that nature.
Yeah.
Like he's very like willing to do that, and it's not that Luka's not willing. It's a little different when you're like a very like high volume fluid, like sort of like catch and shoot player, like Kyrie is. Like he's had that experience playing alongside all kinds of players.
Yeah.
So I feel like in that second unit, depends so far. Like remains to be seen a little bit of who else will be in it. I think if you throw in like a Jaden Hardy, they'll need playmaking because that's an area that he's growing at. Still like kind of. He's a very like wired to be an aggressive scorer. So if you have those three, let's say, I'm not sure how Seth Curry is going to factor in, or Jaden will yet, but either one of them, I think you would need the playmaking from Josh Green to kind of enhance things and kind of tie it together. Especially if you don't have Luka on the court, you need that extra presence. And I
Yeah.
think just thinking more about that second unit, they'll probably have a non-creator at the five, and Olivier Maxence Prosper, he's probably going to be more of a
Canadian.
closeout guy.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he's probably gonna be more of like attack and closeout guy. You're not going to run high pick and rolls
Right.
for him. unless he has that crazy development curve over the next couple of years.
Yeah.
And people look like a genius for making crazy comparisons right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the short term future, I think Josh Green in those like plug and play lineups, his playmaking will be very important for the Mavs.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think Josh Green is sort of you look back at 3-and-D players from even 5 years ago, 6 years ago, it was very stationary, right? You need to have a guy who can shoot, he can catch and shoot, hit open shots, and be able to defend and maybe guard multiple positions on the floor. But nowadays, 3-and-D guys are required to do more than that. You have to be an active participant in the offense. You have to be able to attack a closeout, make a play, be able to do something else other than just catch and shoot and play defense on the other end. Those days are very long gone at this point. And Josh Green is sort of an evolution of that type of player. Whether he can squeeze that other juice out of his game, the pull-up game, the creating, and be able to hit a different level, man, sky's the limit if that is going to be inevitably happening. Grant, I'll ask you this. This is the final question I'm asking everybody else. What does a Josh Green leap look like next season?
Yeah, I think it would probably look like him taking on that full-time wing starting role next to Luka and Kyrie, playing heavy minutes. And I think just continuing to be confident in his shot, taking more volume.
Yep.
And then I would also say, kind of growing on a little bit of what like what we talked about with his role in the offense. I think there's only so much you can control when you're playing your role. But if they test out some actions early on and he handles it well, and they keep it installed and they grow on it, that would be a great like layer to a strong like breakout season. I also think defensively for him, this Mavs team very much needs high level perimeter defenders. They added 2 players at the 4 to bring more size to an undersized group after trading Dorian Finney-Smith. But I think for Josh Green, there were times last year where he had struggles with fouling. He fouled too much, and I think another issue at times was he kind of got lost off the ball. So yeah. Oh, sorry. This dog outside is like making noise at me. I can restart this if you want.
No,
I did
you're
not.
good. You're good. You're good. We'll fight through the dog. It's all good. No worries. Look,
Okay, yeah. Sorry.
it's the off season, man. We know everybody's doing their own thing. You're good. Don't worry about it. Yeah, yeah.
Sorry about that. But yeah, basically, like, if he just like basically cuts down on fouling, locks in as an off-ball defender, and like goes from being passable and like just solid to being like a high-level defender with his tools, I
Yeah.
think that's where he could really have a helpful breakout this upcoming season for himself.
Yeah, I'm fascinated. I think like one of the more interesting lineups I'm looking forward to from the Mavericks is just having Maxey, Grant Williams, Josh Green, Luka, Kyrie, and then I don't know if that's too small. It's probably a little too small, and you're running into some defensive issues, but maybe the offensive side of the ball that looks really, really good and looks really fun. And hey, for the Mavericks, when you have 2 offensive superstars in Luka and Kyrie tapping into that side of the ball and thriving, I really think like there's room for them to be a top 5 offense in the NBA next season. We'll see. Grant, you do incredible work, man, for the Mavericks. I follow you deeply when it comes to Mavericks basketball. It's awesome to be able to chat with you. Hopefully in the season we'll be able to talk more about other areas of Mavericks basketball, whether it be Luka, Kyrie, anything else that happens with them. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Anything you want to plug before we head out of here?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think just basically all my writing will be on DallasBasketball.com. I'm going to be covering the Hall of Fame, Dirk Nowitzki Hall of Fame ceremony coming up. I think mid-August,
Nice.
and then I'm going to have some in-depth breakdowns as well of like Jaden Hardy's summer league and like big picture stuff as well. Like probably of like like what we saw from Luka and Kyrie and like basically like what we can look forward to heading into training camp and things of that nature.
Awesome. Thank you, man. Grant, appreciate it. And thank you for everybody for tapping into another episode of The Leap. We'll have more coming your way. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, thanks for having me.